I have a custom 67 Cadillac hearse that I completely hot rodded out, and my own custom coffin, and I would take 6 guys and they would carry me into a place. They would take, load me out of the hearse.
Danny Koker emerged from the muddy depths of classic cars and sputtering engines on Pawn Stars. But his struggles behind the scenes will leave you shocked. Owing to his expertise as a recurring classic car specialist, the History Channel thought him worthy of his own franchise show. Hence the birth of Counting Cars. However, in 2021, the show was cancelled, with no prior reasons given, leaving fans to wonder what might have prompted this sudden halt. Will Danny ever find his way back to the top? Join us as we discuss the unseen part of Danny Koker's reality. The rise of Danny Koker. Born September 23, 1964, Danny Koker found a passion for the big screen from an early age. Raised in the gnarly streets of Ohio, Cleveland, where the roaring sounds of hot rods and American classic muscle cars canvassed its terrains, he quickly developed an affection for cars, and not just any one. He had an affinity for the roaring engines and found some joy when he was around them. Although he had developed a serious love for automobiles, his life on the big screens did not begin in some dusty old garages or an auto shop. Instead, he explored his ability as a musician. Except for his affinity with cars, Danny grew up as a 6-foot-plus mountain man menace on the piano. He had such serious skills that they could not be overlooked by anyone who came in contact with them, whether that was his family or the church. So he got his first chance at playing serious music when his folks allowed him to travel with their Christian singing group from a young age, and enjoy what it meant to make music. But real television fame came when he appeared on a B-grade horror film show called Saturday Frights at the Movies as a host, going by the stage name of Count Cool Rider, on a local Las Vegas television channel owned by his family. And he was just as terrific as a show host as he was on a piano. His path was shaping up greatly as a jack of all trades. But in his case, he was proving some serious level of mastery at everything. The Koker family had a maestro on their hands, who was built for the big screens, and they knew it too. But as he grew up, his father and uncle, who worked for Ford Motors as engineers, also started to rub off some of their influence on him. He watched them with car engines, fixing them and building them almost without breaking a sweat, and it piqued his interest. As he readily got his hands dirty and learned to survive the dark smoke from sputtering engines in a garage. Slowly but surely, he became a master at identifying and fixing classic cars, too. But what happens when a man with such a plethora of talents needs to pick a hustle? In Danny Koker's world, that type of man just does it all. But would he ever find a way to get all 3 of his abilities to function without hindrance? Cars, fame, and Pawn Stars. Following his first shot as basking in the sunny fame of television, he still desired a way to make the other sides of him as relevant as possible, as the name Count. Already, he had become some sort of local hero to every kid from Cleveland to Las Vegas. But spending most of his recent adult life in the latter had given him some ideas on how real fame can be made without giving up any parts of himself, and that required him to set up a business. It's Viva Las Vegas anyway, where America parties the loudest. Hence, he set up a music band called Count 77, which made 70s rock music, and they played at his bar, which he called Count's Vamped Rock Bar and Grill. It was a place where bikers and rock enthusiasts called home. It became that chill spot that Vegas did not know that it needed at the time. However, this bar was mostly a manifestation of his abilities as a musician, a rock music enthusiast, and a socialite who brings all the needed energy. But beneath the fair facade of these top-notch accomplishments, there was a dream hiding somewhere in him, hoping and dying to be found before it sinks into oblivion. While no one particularly saw it brewing in him like a tornado, he really wanted the opportunity to find fame as a classic car specialist. But what happens when talent does not meet opportunity. In his case, that road only leads to the creation of a bar and grill business that only explores some parts of who he really is. Soon, news of his auto shop, Count's Customs, and his bar and grill business that was just as capable of making serious 70s rock music as they were on a grill, and led by an interesting personality named the Count, traveled really quickly. But this time, the news found Vegas's biggest pawn shop, Rick Harrison's pawn shop. Rick's shop was so popular that it became an important show named Pawn Stars on the History Channel, and became the place where regular folks from Vegas and all around the United States traded old, valuable items, including watches, old clocks, old video games, and classic cars, mostly American muscles that have lasted the test of time, and that was his Danny Koker's time to shine. Finally, the classic car enthusiast and genius in him was about to be let loose, live on television, and show the world who he really was. Already, he had set up an auto garage called Count's Customs in the late 90s, where he restored automobiles, bikes, and customized them. However, he only ever really found mainstream fame when Rick Harrison gave him the push that he needed. In his first appearance on Rick Harrison's Pawn Stars, he dazzled viewers with his knowledge about these classic cars and his ability to not only fix them and restore their past glories, but also tell their values by simply looking at them. Soon, he had become a regular on the show, recurrently appearing on every episode that needed a classic car specialist. But how long did his presence on the show last? Transitioning to counting cars. The early 2010s immediately set him as one of America's biggest classic car analysts, especially because of his appearance on Pawn Stars. But while that was the exact push that his career on television required, he wanted more. Danny had never really been the type to settle for less than what he deemed possible, a feat made obvious by the decision to create an auto shop in the late 90s, a rock band, and a bar and grill business, and running it all like the dominant main character that he is. However, the time had come for some time in the sun, and Danny Koker did not feel like they had flown anywhere near enough to be seen. So, as he continuously appeared on the show, showcasing his abilities and bringing some of that Ohio-laced Las Vegas energy into the mix, the History Channel watched him closely, figuring out the possibility of him having his own show where he simply restored automobiles and put that knack he had for automobiles to good use. Fortunately, he did not disappoint the channel, which immediately set him up for his own show called Counting Cars in 2012. The channel found his energy infectious, and was also seduced by the fact that he was a self-taught mechanic who could handle anything with a set of wheels and an engine with an ignition to turn it on. Danny was immediately famous for his tenacity to hunt down classic American muscle, motorbikes, that sometimes date as far back as the 70s, and hot rods across the country, offering some serious cash in exchange for these mechanical beasts of time, and reanimating them right in front of the cameras. This was the beginning of a completely different life for him, and he made the most of it. From the very first filmed episode that came up in 2012, his presence on television signified more than simply watching a man who was trying to make a deal or flip cars. Fans of the franchise suggested that his strong, eccentric personality was somewhat reminiscent of the classic, rugged American charm. To them, it made every detail of the franchise an interesting watch. Every negotiation reportedly felt like a poker game, where every party involved had to wear their game faces and make sure to walk away with the best deals. Hence, it wasn't just these rugged mechanical beasts displayed, the show had serious human elements that kept it natural and surreal. As the years passed, the franchise grew even stronger, with additions of some serious personalities to his auto shop, Count's Customs, where the real work to get these automobiles to shape really happens. He had men like Ryan Evans, the lead painter, Kevin Mack, his right-hand man, Mike Henry, the airbrush artist, Rolly Sabo, and Shannon Ikaw, at the thick of things, getting their hands dirty in the auto shop. And arguing sometimes over minute details on how to approach a car design or anything else. America watched all that testosterone splashed over their screen for 9 straight years. Until 2019, when the History Channel called time on the show, leaving fans wondering. What next for Danny Koker? The collapse of counting cars. While Danny lived his dreams as one of America's biggest ever television franchises as a classic car expert, 9 years just wasn't enough time for a man like that to show the world all that he had to offer. What happens when a man like that starts to lose the franchise that embodied everything that he loved about automobiles? When the franchise stopped airing in 2021, several news reports of wrongdoings were spread over many tabloids, including rumors of his incarceration and fraudulent activities. However, huge media outlets made no remarks, and Danny avoided the spotlight altogether. For a man who had been in the public eye since his youthful days, he knew to an extent how the media worked. He could come out to debunk the rumors, which might simply feed the trolls and describe his narrative as a PR damage control, or he could choose silence and let the rumors fester like an open wound. As expected, he chose the longer road, committing to silence after the show ended, and watched the rumors spread from the safe comfort of his garage, where he had been rumored to be putting in the work and focusing on his business more than cameras rolling and what the media had to say. But what could have made a man with such an eccentric personality choose to stay far away from the media's noise and choose solitude? Following the end of his franchise in 2021, tabloids inflamed rumors about Koker's involvement in selling CBD products, and also claimed that he was on Fox News to promote his merchandise unapologetically. Although Danny had affiliations with biker gangs, especially because of his job as a collector and mechanic, he had never been reported to have had any criminal or gang affiliations over the years, until the show had finally ended. Following the continuous allegations, he employed a legal team to fight this problem, but he was also stealthy in his approach, giving the media no clue about his shadowy battle with the crime team, who were using his identity to promote their cannabis merchandise. But what happens when push comes to shove and he just cannot take the accusations and wrong stares anymore? What happens when business begins to slow down and no one tries to associate with a man who is allegedly boldly promoting cannabis merchandise or top platforms? Some believe that Danny's reputation has gotten to his head, and this time he had found his Icarus arc, flying too close to the sun, therefore melting away his franchise from the History Channel. Was that really the case, or was it just another setup on a celebrity? However, it did not end there. The deep fakes and lies spread deep like cancer into his team. But just how did he handle it? Deep fakes got deeper. As soon as he found some fame in counting cars, it wasn't long before he was being targeted. He was no longer just that cool guy who could simply make some 70s rock music at his bar and serve some vampire-themed meal. He had suddenly become the famed Count of Counting Cars, hence he expected the exploitation and the unavoidable tabloid prejudices that came with it. Although his rumored CBS sale was the most popular propaganda that was set up against him after the Counting Cars franchise had come to an end, the media created a new mess, using Ryan Evans' name. Ryan was a mainstay during the Counting Cars franchise. He was a fan favorite with well over 100 appearances on set with Danny Koker right by his side. Rumor has it that they were especially closer than just workers, as the pair had an established working relationship even before the advent of counting cars. However, in a period when artificial intelligence and other digital developments ran rife, everything was definitely possible, especially deep fake pictures that could paint a wrong image of an individual. The rumors about Ryan transcended the popular but often debunked rumors of his inability to meet deadlines when required urgently. This time, the accusations cut deeper and were possibly ruinous. He was accused of embezzling over $70,000 from the franchise's account and only kept up appearances to keep the ruse going. It wasn't long before the tabloids created deep fakes of his photographs being in jail and kicked out of the franchise for fraud. However, Koker had been in the business too long to know what friends to trust, and he knew he could trust Ryan, so he kept away from the media's torturous eyes and instead opened a private investigation, following the money quietly and looking towards a resolution as quickly as possible. As expected, he found what he was looking for: the real perpetrator. But finding him was not enough for an overachiever with a vendetta. He needed to see him pay for his crimes, so he dragged the real culprit, Joseph Frontier, to court and scorched earth to make sure that he got reparations for his attitude, and got a damages fee of $41,000. Although he got reparations for the damage that was caused to his shop and the inconveniences that were caused between him and Ryan Evans, a friend he had known for over 25 years, he found it triggering that he was not only being targeted, but his closest friends and family were also on the radar. But as much as he had continued to face the systemic attacks, his custom car business remains in play. But how has he reinvented himself to match this post-History Channel personality? A new Danny Koker. Although he had most definitely lost his franchise show with the History Channel, one thing remained: Danny Koker was no one-trick pony. He is a multifaceted enigma who was more than capable of inventing and reinventing himself. His track record as a musician when the times called for it, and as a bar and grill demigod when he needed to be, was just so good to keep him away from the spotlight. He was a visionary who saw the light before anyone else, hence, when the fame and the money came with the custom car franchise, he made the conscious choice of expanding his business, completely grabbing it by the scruff of the neck. He had opened the bar and grill business in 2011, using vampire-themed aesthetics, including the Sunset Strip designs, dim, moody lighting, leather boots, and of course, the Count name as owner. Connoting the vampire legend of Count Dracula, it wasn't the regular weird theme bar in Vegas. Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates just like this.